The battle lines are drawn between the ruling BJP and the opposition camp. The top players are not pulling any punches.
और पहले जब उनकी सरकार थी उन्होंने कहा था कि देश की संपत्ति पर पहला अधिकार मुसलमानों का है। इसका मतलब ये संपत्ति इकट्ठी करके किसको बांटेंगे? जिनके ज्यादा बच्चे हैं उनको बांटेंगे, घुसपैठियों को बांटेंगे। क्या आपकी मेहनत की कमाई का पैसा घुसपैठियों को दिया जाएगा? आपको मंजूर है ये कांग्रेस का मैनिफेस्टो कह रहा है कि वो माताओं बहनों का सोने का हिसाब करेंगे, उसकी जड़ती करेंगे, जानकारी लेंगे और फिर उस संपत्ति को बांट देंगे। जिनको मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार ने कहा था कि संपत्ति पर पहला अधिकार मुसलमानों का है। भाइयों बहनों, ये अर्बन नक्सल की सोच, मेरी माताओं बहनों, ये आपका मंगलसूत्र भी बचने नहीं देंगे, यहां तक जाएंगे बेटा।
They took away my Lok Sabha membership. Within a few weeks, I was thrown out of the Lok Sabha. And when they spoke, the whole world listened because they knew that these are not individuals speaking. This is the voice of the Tamil people speaking. And now, the voice of the Tamil people is asking a few simple questions. It is asking Narendra Modi, Mr. Adani, the RSS these questions. The question is, why are you attacking our language, our history and our tradition? You come here and you say, I like dosas. And then you go back to Delhi and you say, one nation, one leader, one language. Why one language? Why not space for Tamil? Why not space for Bengali? Why not space for Kannada? So you come here, you tell the people of Tamil Nadu you like dosa, and then you insult them, and you attack their culture, their history, their language. Today, most vice chancellors who are defining the way we educate our children from the RSS, the bureaucratic system, the election commission, the legal system are all being infiltrated by the RSS, and the RSS is placing their people in all these institutions. This is an attack on the very idea of our nation. It is an attack on the union of India. The BJP has clearly said that they are going to change the constitution if they win the election.
As the war of words in Lok Sabha elections 2024 has become sharper day by day, the Election Commission of India has taken an unprecedented step. On April 25th, the election watchdog served notices to the party presidents of BJP and Congress for violation of Model Code of Conduct by their top star campaigners, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Wayanad MP Rahul Gandhi. This is the Economic Times Special Elections Podcast, Polls on My Pod. In this episode, we will examine the Election Commission's role in bringing credibility to the Indian election and the question of low voter turnout once again in the second phase of polling. It is Wednesday, the 1st of May. I am your host Nidhi Sharma and you're listening to the Morning Brief. On April 19th, the BJP complained to the Election Commission against Rahul Gandhi, pointing out specific parts of the speeches in Coimbatore and Kottayam a day before. Calling his remarks indiscreet and irresponsible, BJP termed him as a serial offender and sought action for violation of Model Code of Conduct. 2 days later, on April 21st, Congress complained against the Prime Minister's speech in Banswara, Rajasthan, terming it as divisive and aimed at creating enmity between groups. This wasn't the first time the Election Commission was facing the big question of poll code violations. In 2019, a rift between then Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora and Election Commissioner Ashok Lavasa had come out in the open. Election Commission had cleared Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah in poll code violations about 6 times, and Lavasa had dissented. But in the run-up to 2024 polls, the Election Commission found a new way to address this. On April 25th, it served a notice to presidents of BJP and Congress, and not to the campaigners, as the practice has been. It held the political party responsible for its star campaigner. The expectation from star campaigners is to provide corrective action or a sort of healing touch when intensity of local campaign disrupts or inadvertently crosses over such boundaries, the Election Commission notice observed. The Commission said, "Yours is a national party and is therefore expected to be the standard bearer in political and campaign discourse, and as such should also set high standards of compliance of the Model Code of Conduct." It also directed the two party chiefs. You are also directed, as President of the National Party, to bring to the notice of all your star campaigners to set high standards of political discourse and observe provisions of MCC in letter and spirit. I am joined by my colleague Anubhuti Vishnoi, who covers the Election Commission and will today help us understand the notices served by the Election Commission. Welcome to the morning brief, Anubhuti. Tell us about the notices that have gone to the two party heads and what is the reason and what exactly is the history. Could you tell us something about that?
Thank you so much for having me in, Nidhi. So yes, it's been an eventful week electoral cycle-wise. As we know, there were two very strong statements made by the Prime Minister as well as by Mr. Rahul Gandhi, which have come to the Election Commission's attention. And the Election Commission was kind of on the watch because it was widely seen as a polarizing communal speech. And after 2-3 days, the Commission finally took a call and issued a notice to the Bharatiya Janata Party President for the Prime Minister's comments, alongside also sent a notice to the Congress Party President, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, for Rahul Gandhi's remarks at a campaign rally. Now, this is unique in itself because so far the Commission would always issue a notice to the candidate if there is an offensive speech or speech found violative of the Model Code of Conduct in any way. This is the first where the party is being held fully accountable for the conduct of their candidates as well as their star campaigners. You know what this says, and I'd like to quote actually that political parties will have to take primary and increasing responsibility for the conduct of candidates in general and star campaigners in particular.
Anubhuti, what is the genesis of this problem? I believe even in 2019, the Election Commission debated whether to serve a notice or not. What was that controversy?
The 2019 parliamentary elections, of course, interesting and a case study in itself because of what happened that time in terms of the treatment on MCC complaints by the Commission and the dissent that occurred within the Commission because of that. At the root of it was, a couple of complaints against the Prime Minister and then the BJP President, Mr. Amit Shah, over their statements. On 2 counts, they were found alleged to be communal, and another references to the defense forces. On these counts, these complaints were there before the Commission. The Commission was not taking a final decision on it. At least it was not known in public domain. And one of the election commissioners, Mr. Ashok Lavasa, was in dissent against what then Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Sunil Arora, and the other election commissioner was Mr. Sushil Chandra. They did not feel that it warranted action under MCC. Mr. Lavasa felt it warranted strong action. And it ultimately led to the Election Commission itself becoming news in that whole 2019 election, which is why this becomes an interesting area on how the Election Commission arbitrates or looks into complaints against the highest authorities or the highest chair of the government.
Is Election Commission known to have taken any strong action against any candidate when found on the wrong side of this thing? Has it ever happened? Or do they just advise the parties to take some action?
That is because the EC will generally issue an advisory or hand out campaign bans in case of a violation of the Model Code of Conduct. Now, there is a reason for that because the Model Code of Conduct is essentially like a moral code which has been agreed to by every party. It doesn't come with statutory provisions. It doesn't lead to legal consequences from the breach of its positions. So basically, it's public opinion and moral sanction for its enforcement is needed. Please remember, in the past, it has been a very, very passive document in the 90s, 60s, and for the first 3, 4 decades, very little was done under the MCC. In the 90s is when the Election Commission started enforcing it, handing out advisories, campaign bans. In some cases, it was resisted also. Political leaders and parties said that, there is no legal enforcement. If it lands in courts, it will go the way an election petition goes. That goes into several years. Now, the idea behind a model code is that if somebody violates, you try and take some kind of action within the space of that electoral period. So the idea is to somehow bring in some kind of moral opprobrium, some kind of a general advisory or some kind of moral censure. Hate speech, in fact, is on top of the list when you look at the Model Code of Conduct itself, and which is why the Commission usually takes a stronger view of this. So it's, general conduct, how the MCC opens. Para 2 itself says criticism of other political parties has to be very carefully done, restricted to their past record and work. And it very clearly says there shall be no appeal to caste or communal feelings for securing votes. Mosques, churches, temples, other places of worship shall not be used as a forum for election propaganda. This is where it all derives from. But this, again, I will underline, is mostly becomes a moral document which has been developed with the consensus, developed with all political parties.
Anubhuti, you were saying that this particular instance actually stands out because this notice has been served to the political party. Do you see it as a way of circumventing that problem that occurred in 2019? This was a way out that, they have served the notice, also done the right thing, and also kept everything credible.
I think it's a tricky territory. Never has a notice been served to a sitting prime minister so far by the Election Commission. Most of the time, whether it is the tallest or the biggest opposition leader, and whether it is the prime minister's office, the commission is usually careful around both these figures for the simple reason that there are very strong both political and electoral implications. Please remember, in November 2023, Mr. Gandhi had made a statement where he referred to the Prime Minister as a Jeeb Katra. That earned him a notice, but the EC did not act on it. Similarly, when the Wayanad case happened, when he was disqualified for a 2019 speech and Wayanad bypolls were due, the Commission chose to give him a little longer time to explore appeal options instead of announcing a bypoll straight off in Wayanad, which was it was well within its remit to do so. But as you rightly pointed out, 2019, not much was being done, or it was caught in dissent between the Commission. It drew a lot of criticism, and the question that was raised on the EC's credibility in that election was damaging for its reputation. So today, when what the Commission is doing is finding, I would say, a novel way, it is very interesting, and we'll have to wait and watch and see whether it leads to credible results or the desired result, whether it helps brook that kind of conversation or that kind of campaign discussion. What it is doing is it is saying the political party is accountable. And that, I would say, also has to do a little bit with their own experience on what happens in these cases, because you send a notice to the candidate, and sometimes they will say sorry, they will write it, and they'll write an apology. But again, a couple of days down, they will make a similar statement, or some other person in the party will make a similar statement. Here it is trying to shift the needle by doing that. Now, yes, whether it is walking a tightrope and, as you said, trying to still find a way around the difficult situation, it's a subjective question. So I think it will be a very interesting play on how the Commission navigates this MCC territory. It is early days still, so I will not call final verdict on how the MCC is implemented by the Election Commission in 2024.
The step to serve notices to party presidents is indeed unprecedented. But the Election Commission is known to have taken action against persons occupying high offices. My colleague Anubhuti and I interviewed former Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat to understand what discussions take place within the Election Commission and how the poll body takes these decisions. Sir, just last week, the Election Commission has served notices to two party chiefs, to BJP and to the Congress, to see that the speech given by their two-star campaigners saw it as a violation of Model Code of Conduct and have sought replies. Sir, how unique is this step?
Actually, we have to put the things in context for analyzing any such situation. If you see the Model Code of Conduct, it has served the purpose of bringing order in election campaigns like nothing could have done. Or if you see anywhere in the world of democracy, this is the unique thing to Indian elections. If we see these two notices, it is very clear that prima facie cases are made out. And since these are the cases of star campaigners, Election Commission has rightly addressed the notices to the party president that, look here, your star campaigners have deviated from the code at this point of time, and you have to take necessary action to ensure that, number one, this is not repeated and given the right sort of directions.
When you have someone like the Prime Minister making a speech which many see as prima facie violative of the MCC, or where you have complaints from the opposition against the highest office in the country, how does the Commission deal with it? The fact is, we know that the Commission hasn't really issued notices to the Prime Minister ever so far. So what is the thinking in the Commission when such a situation arises?
Actually, such high and mighty people, they very seldom commit this kind of aberration. But there was an incident in 2018 as well, when this kind of aberration was there. But since Commission had already taken action on someone who was very high in the hierarchy of opposition in the same type of aberration, to lodge an FIR and to take head on. So as soon as the case of Prime Minister also came before the Commission, then there was a dilemma that since action has been taken against one party at the top level, we have to take the action against the ruling party also at the top level. But then one of the Secretariat officials brought out a list of documents which showed that there were demands to review that particular section of the Representation of People Act in the editorials of national dailies and political parties meetings every time, that since multi-phase election require this kind of happening on the electronic media, and you cannot prevent it. And therefore, either you review this section or you will have to keep taking action against everyone, because there is election going on in one area where silence period is on, and in adjacent area, the campaigning is going on. So these things are going to happen regularly, and you have to take action against everyone in those matters, and that will become really dicey. So Election Commission at that point of time decided not to issue notice, and they decided to review that section, constituted a committee, and since this section was under review, they also ordered that action against all those people in recent election where FIRs have been lodged shall abate. No action will be initiated, no action will be taken until and unless the review is completed and the Election Commission makes up its mind, and Parliament also takes a call on the issue.
How are these notices on Model Code of Conduct looked at? Because there is no real action as far as, punishment or cases are concerned. Do you think they're actually sending a signal for parties to toe a line of decency? Or you think they can be made stricter now? There is a need for that?
There is absolutely no need to do that, because you can not even think of making it stricter. Model Code of Conduct was brought about because election period, campaign period is 6 to 8 weeks, not much. And during this period, lakhs and lakhs of complaints come of all kinds of violations and issues and everything. And the only arbiter is Election Commission. Then Election Commission's procedure is a little dilatory. Election Commission has to first decide whether notice is to be issued or not. Then they have to give time for a reply, like 1 day or 2 days. And in this particular case, I think they have given 3 days time because it is against topmost leaders and political party presidents had to be given the notice so that we get enough time to mull over everything and give a comprehensive reply. So their procedure is such that they will take that much time, definitely.
Do you think, sir, the change of being a mute spectator, which the Election Commission often seems to earn, is unfair?
Absolutely. Only thing is, I wrote it, I think, in Navbharat Times, that Election Commission just need to take this into account, that complaint, etc., is becoming viral, is going from places to places and making 10 rounds before you decide. So you must ensure that the visibility, the optics part of your actions is taken good care of in comprehension so that the public impression also remains that you are acting, you are awake, and you are fair.
So there was this latest data that was published which said that barely 30% of the youth who turned 18 between 2019 and 2024, barely 30% got enrolled for on the electoral rolls. Don't you think that this is also where the Election Commission can step in to increase the enrollment in the voter electoral rolls?
The Election Commission has done so much that electoral literacy clubs all across the inter-colleges and colleges spread out throughout the country, and they are doing great job at enrolling the youngsters who are in the education system. And for those who are out of the education system, they have these Chunav Pathshala in villages, in labor bastis, everywhere. And these pathshalas are increasing the electoral literacy of the illiterate people, of the workers in the unorganized sector, and they are creating awareness for registering as soon as you complete the age of 18. And Election Commission's effort have brought in, instead of one date, 1st January of every year, now 4 dates. Other thing they can't really handle because, to be exact, 38% youngsters who attained the age of 18 enrolled this time. So it is slightly more than 30%. But, the other side, they cannot do anything because if you go to any youngsters club or group, they will say that our favorite party is going to win so many seats and there is no need of us enrolling or going or taking the trouble, those kind of things. And the other side will say, as demoralized, that even if we do, our single vote will not really make much of difference. So why take the trouble?
Mr. Rawat says the only pressures Election Commission feels is on scheduling of elections.
Because constraints of availability of paramilitary forces, which are demanded by every opposition party in every state, really causes a lot of for the commission in scheduling. Whereas pressure mounts at times to give time. And Election Commission generally navigates through those pressures comfortably and bargains that if you need this to happen, you will have to provide more paramilitary forces. And that really resolves the pressures as well as the issues in scheduling.
The two national parties were given time till this Monday, April 29th, to give their replies. Both BJP and Congress have now sought more time to reply to the notices by the Commission. But what the action seems to have done is send a signal to the political players that they would need to be careful and follow the model code of conduct. Apart from the violations by the star campaigners, another issue that occupied the Election Commission was the Phase 2 voter turnout. About 88 constituencies across 13 states voted in the second phase, and the voter turnout saw a 3% dip as compared to 2019 elections. Of the 88 constituencies, only about 10 registered a marginal increase in voter turnout, certainly a cause of worry for political parties. This is all for today. We will bring you some more stories next Wednesday. But before we bring you our ground reports, about 94 Lok Sabha constituencies in 12 states would go for polling in the third phase on May 7th. I hope more of us will exercise our right to vote. I'm your host Nidhi Sharma, signing off. This episode was brought to you by sound designer Indranil Bhattacharjee and producers Vinay Joshi. Executive producers Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Barman. Thank you for listening, and if you liked this episode, do spread the word. All new episodes of the Morning Brief podcast drop every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It streams on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Have a great week ahead. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits mentioned in the description.